10 days before the arrival of the zombie apocalypse, I was reborn. I immediately tipped my mother and started hoarding goods like crazy. When the zombie virus broke out, we would hide in the old house and not go out. In my previous life, my husband, along with my in-laws and his mistress, burst into the house and beat me and my mother to death. In this life, they still want to seek refuge with us. They're really daydreaming. I picked up the Juga repeating crossbow and aimed it at their heads. 1. There are still 10 days until the zombie virus breaks out. My father had just been buried, and I was staying with my mother in the old house, earnestly persuading her to go back to Jinqing with me to spend her old age. Otherwise, I really couldn't rest assured leaving her alone in our hometown. My mother didn't want to. She was being hesitant, saying that she wanted to stay here with my father, and that the chickens and ducks my father had raised before his death needed someone to feed them. Also, the fruit trees outside the door had already ripened, and she needed to contact someone to come and pick the fruits. I couldn't persuade her, so I could only stay here with her. During this time, my husband called me countless times urging me to go home, but I ignored him. After all, no matter how close my husband was, he couldn't be closer than my own mother. Unexpectedly, just 10 days later, news came that the zombie virus had broken out. My husband called me and said that there were zombies all downstairs in his place, and there were occasional explosion sounds. The air was filled with a pungent smell, and the food and drinks at home were almost gone. He asked me how things were on my side. I told him the truth. Things are okay on my side. I haven't seen any zombies outside, and there's plenty of food and drink at home. We can last for a few months without a problem. All right then. I don't have to worry about you anymore. My husband even heaved a sigh of relief, saying that he didn't have to worry about me now and that I didn't have to worry about him either, as he had his own way to deal with it. How could I not worry? I called him every now and then, but it seemed that the internet was down, and I couldn't get through no matter how many times I called. Just as I was getting really worried, on the 5th day after the zombie virus broke out, he suddenly appeared outside my house with my in-laws. I rushed to open the door, but it wasn't just him and my in-laws who came in. There was also the female neighbor upstairs and her 6-year-old son hiding behind them, too. I was very surprised. After all, we had some unpleasant experiences before. However, facing the apocalypse, I still let them in and was about to close the door. Unexpectedly, my mother-in-law suddenly stopped the door with her hand, grinned, and said to me, "Faith, don't blame me for being heartless in this situation. There shouldn't be any useless things in the house." What? I didn't understand. My mother-in-law continued to tell me, "You, a hen that can't lay eggs, should be thrown out to feed the zombies. If it wasn't for the fact that you're the only daughter in your family and you bought a house in the city, I wouldn't have let my son marry you. Why are you wasting your breath on her?" My husband pushed me out with a dark face. I struggled and shouted, "What are you doing? This is my house." "What do you mean your house? Once you're married and everything belongs to our family, you've been occupying our things for so many years and should have returned them long ago. Daisy, don't just stand there and watch. Come and give me a hand. Let's throw her out to feed the zombies together. From now on, you'll be my daughter-in-law." My mother-in-law pulled me while shouting at the female neighbor upstairs. I then realized that they had already been having an affair. I was so angry that I roared, "Mark, have you lost your mind? You're going to push me out to feed the zombies for a woman with a 6-year-old child." Haha. The female neighbor upstairs suddenly burst into laughter, and my mother-in-law also grinned like a ghost. "Do you think everyone is like you, a hen that can't lay eggs? Leo is my real grandson. What are you doing?" My mother came at this moment and rushed over to save me from their hands. Unexpectedly, my father-in-law, who was standing aside, suddenly raised his hand, and the shovel hit the back of my mother's head heavily. "Mom," I pounced on my mother to protect her, and the shovel hit my head heavily. Once, twice, 3 times, countless times, I fell to the ground. My husband hugged the female neighbor, and there was a ferocious smile of success on his face, like a ghost from hell dragging me into the endless darkness. 3. "Mom, just come back to Jinqing with me." It was at this moment that I was suddenly reborn. Frames of the scenes before my rebirth flashed through my mind. Even the back of my head ached terribly, but when I touched it, there was no blood, and the sky outside the window was still a clear blue. Oh, I think it's quite nice to live here. Besides, the apples outside have already ripened. If I leave with you at this time, it's like throwing away money. And the chickens and ducks in the yard were all your father's hard work. I can't just leave them behind. My mother was still as hesitant as in my memory and refused to leave with me. In my previous life, I tried so hard to persuade her and even got angry, thinking that she didn't understand me as a daughter at all. Now I pounced on her and cried, "Mom, we won't leave. We'll stay here with Dad." "What? You definitely have to go back." My mother didn't agree. She could stay, but I couldn't. After all, I still had a home outside. She didn't know that the only home I had was the one with her in it. Looking at the date, there are still 10 days until the zombie virus breaks out. Whether my mother believed me or not, I told her about my rebirth and also told her that there would be some people biting others in the next few days, and the zombie virus would suddenly break out after those incidents. It seemed that overnight, the whole world would fall. Then we need to hoard goods. My mother's first reaction was actually this. I was taken aback for a moment. Mom, you believe me. Who else can I believe if I don't believe you? My mother smiled and touched my head. Your father is gone, and I only have you. Didn't the old saying go that a woman should obey her father at home, her husband after marriage, and her daughter in old age? I really couldn't hold back my laughter. My mother was so witty, talking about obeying her daughter in old age. Anyway, this time, I definitely wouldn't make the same mistake again. By the way, I also had a very important thing to do, which was to find a real estate agent and directly sell my house in Jinqing at a 50% discount. Of course, I also told the agent the situation directly. The house was bought before my marriage. Now it's occupied by my husband and my in-laws. Please transfer the money directly to my card. I will entrust a lawyer to handle the transfer of ownership. You can deal with taking over the house by yourselves at that time. According to the current market situation, that house was worth at least over 3 million yuan. At a 50% discount, it only cost less than 2 million yuan. The agent transferred the down payment to my account that afternoon. I also contacted a lawyer and directly sent the power of attorney and the property ownership certificate over. Indeed, in the internet age, I didn't need to show up at all. Once the power of attorney and the property ownership certificate arrived, the transfer procedures could be completed. That night, my mother and I hardly slept. We carefully wrote down everything we needed to buy and do. Originally, I wanted to buy food and drinks online. But then I thought that there were only 4 or 5 courier stations in the town at the foot of the mountain. If a large number of packages were delivered there, it would definitely attract the attention of the store owners. When the apocalypse came, I was afraid that we would be targeted. It would be great if the courier station was ours. As soon as I told my mother about this concern, she laughed. This is easy, we can just buy one. A few days ago, I went down the mountain to pick up a package and happened to see that the store owner wanted to transfer the business. His son was admitted to a university in another place, and the couple wanted to follow him. I overheard that the whole transfer only cost 48,000 yuan. 5. Early the next morning, my mother went down the mountain and headed straight for the courier station. More than 2 hours later, my mother sent me a message. It's done. This courier station will be ours from now on. You can buy whatever you want, and don't worry about the store owner being nosy. This time, I could finally place orders boldly. First, I bought all kinds of antibiotics, disinfectant drugs, banlangen granules, etc., all in quantities enough for 5 years. Then I added rice, flour, cooking oil, and other things to the shopping cart. I also stocked up on white sugar, brown sugar, rock sugar, all in quantities of hundreds of caddies. After that, I stocked up on miscellaneous grains like mung beans, red beans, soybeans, etc., all in quantities of 50 caddies. Dried foods like yuba, black fungus, dried mushrooms, etc. were also essential, and I bought as many cured products like dried sausages, cured meat, salted fish, pickled vegetables, etc. as possible. Shall we buy some? My mother was shopping in the vegetable market and asked me if I wanted to buy some meat and vegetables to take home. I replied to her, you can buy enough for these few days, but don't buy too much to avoid attracting attention. As for other things, I will buy them online and we can transport them home after they are delivered to the courier station. The most urgent thing was to buy a small truck first. I bought a second-hand one, and the agent said that it would be delivered to me the next day. At that time, I would park it at the door of the courier station, let the delivery workers put my packages directly on the truck, and then I would transport them home at night, trying my best not to attract anyone's attention. At 9:30 in the morning, my mother came back on a small tricycle loaded with bags and boxes. I quickly went to help. Just as we finished unloading the goods, the workers who came to reinforce the fence, install the high-voltage line, and change the iron gate arrived. The iron gate also needed to be replaced. It not only had to be able to pass high-voltage electricity but also be explosion-proof. After all, in the apocalypse, the most terrifying things were often not the zombies but the beasts like my husband and his family. We had to guard against them. Our old house had 3 floors above ground and 1 floor underground, covering an area of more than 300 square meters. Together with the yard, it was nearly 800 square meters. There were solar panels on the roof, and there was a room on the 3rd floor that served as a battery storage room. Since we were on a mountain and had installed photovoltaic panels, the battery capacity was quite large, so even if there was a power outage, it wouldn't affect our normal electricity use. Moreover, there was a well in the yard. The water was pumped from the well to the water storage tank on the roof and then supplied to the whole house, so we didn't have to worry about water and electricity. There was also a vegetable plot and a fish pond. There were chickens and ducks raised in the yard. In my previous life, we could live well even without hoarding goods. If it wasn't for my husband and those beasts, we could have survived for another 10 or 20 years. In short, this time, my mother and I would definitely be able to survive until the end of the apocalypse. As for those beasts, if they dared to show up again, I would definitely make sure they never left. Faith, the workers who came to pick the apples are here. Go and take a look, my mother was calling me. I responded and ran outside. We definitely wouldn't sell the apples, we would keep them all, process them, and then put them in the cold storage. In this way, in the next 2 years, my mother and I could have fresh apples even if we didn't go out. 6. Our cold storage was on the underground floor, covering an area of more than 50 square meters. In the past, the fruits that couldn't be sold out would be stored there first, and they could generally be kept for a year or two without any problem. After I arranged for the workers to process and pack the apples, they were directly carried into the cold storage. At 3:30 in the afternoon, the workers who came to decorate the freezer arrived. The people my mother found were quite reliable. After looking around the basement, they finally chose a room of 50 square meters and promised us that they could finish the work in at most 3 days. I calculated that there were still 9 days until the zombie outbreak. It would be too late to order fresh meat online after the freezer was completed. Early the next morning, I went to the courier station to keep watch, and my mother stayed at home to supervise the workers renovating the house. The credit limit of 120,000 yuan on a certain platform had been used up by me, mostly for buying dried goods, especially for things like black fungus, tremella mushrooms, and shiitake mushrooms, which were light and could be stored for a long time. I stocked up on them like crazy. I also stocked up a lot of black tea and green tea. My mother pays attention to keeping in good health. I also ordered several large boxes of Chinese wolfberries, red dates, and astragalus membranaceus. I must keep my mother in good shape. Next, we needed to move towards sustainable development. After all, no one knew how long the zombie virus outbreak would last and when the national rescue would arrive. So things like rice seeds, vegetable seeds, and fertilizers were essential. Fortunately, my mother had experience in this area and wrote me a list, and I just needed to buy according to it. There were currently more than a dozen red carps in our fish pond. My mother asked the workers to use an excavator to expand it a little today. I directly placed an order online to buy fish fry. Tilapia was the easiest fish to raise that I knew. It often multiplied in large numbers. So I didn't consider other fish and just bought tilapia. I directly ordered 100 of them. I would throw them all into the fish pond. Once they were raised, we wouldn't have to worry about not having fish to eat. 7. I also wanted to get some weapons, but it was absolutely impossible to buy finished products online, so I spent half a day looking for alternatives and finally found one, the Zhuge repeating crossbow. After improvement, its firing range could reach about 100 meters. Coupled with a laser sight and specially made all-steel crossbow arrows, it would definitely be useful in the apocalypse. I couldn't wait to imagine the scene where my husband and those beasts came to find me, and I would stand on the top floor and aim the Zhuge repeating crossbow at their heads. At 6:00 in the afternoon, my truck arrived. I test drove it and it was okay. I directly parked it at the door of the courier station. When my packages arrived, I directly threw them on the truck and would transport them home at night. It would definitely be done without anyone knowing. At a little past 9:00 in the evening, the workers had gone home to rest. My mother and I checked the list of things we needed to do that we had listed before: reinforcing the fence, installing the power grid, changing the explosion-proof iron gate. These had all been done. The expansion of the fish pond had also been done. The freezer was still being built. According to the workers, it wouldn't even take 3 days. They could install the equipment tomorrow and test it. If there were no problems, it could be put into use directly. The progress is quite fast. I took a sip of water. Just then, my phone rang. It was a call from my husband, Mark, asking me when I would go back. I smiled. Soon. I'll stay with my mother for a few more days. Wife, your husband misses you. This scumbag, Mark, I never thought he was so greasy before. I rolled my eyes and didn't say anything. Every time this guy said something like this, he must have something to ask of me. Either he wanted money or there was some trouble with his family that he needed my help with. Sure enough, this guy said, Wife, Mom isn't feeling well. I'm going to take her to the hospital for a comprehensive checkup. 8. In the past, I would definitely have cared about what was wrong with my mother-in-law and then stupidly transferred several thousand or even tens of thousands of yuan over, telling him to take good care of my mother-in-law. Now I was indifferent. Oh, wife, there's no money in my card. Please transfer 8,000 yuan to me first. Mark saw that I didn't mention the money, so he had to bring it up on his own initiative. But even then, I still wouldn't give it to him. I forgot to tell you. My mom wasn't happy these few days. To make her happy, I took her out for a trip and bought her tens of thousands of yuan worth of jewelry at the gold store. Now there's no money in my card, and I was just about to ask you to transfer some to me. How could you do that? Just spend tens of thousands of yuan on your mom like that, and you even took her out to have fun. Heh, Faith, you're really something. That guy immediately got angry and shouted so loudly that my ears were ringing. I directly held the phone away from me and my face turned cold. What's wrong? What's wrong with me spending my own money to make my mom happy? If you want to spend money to make your mom happy, I won't say a word. Even if you want to spend money, you can't spend so much. Just because your mom was unhappy, you spent tens of thousands of yuan. Now my mom is not feeling well and there's no money to take her to the hospital for a checkup. What does that have to do with me? I was so speechless that I laughed. Don't you even understand the basic marriage law? Everyone takes care of their own mother. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for being incompetent and not having the money to take your mom for a checkup. Instead of having the nerve to yell at me, I directly hung up the phone. What an unlucky thing. I was blind in my previous life to have picked such a scumbag. 9. Don't be angry. See what mom has prepared for you. My mom took out an ice cream from behind her mysteriously. My nose instantly turned sour. It used to be my dad who coaxed me like this. She never let me eat ice cream before, saying that it wasn't good for girls to eat too much cold food. After my dad passed away, I thought no one would ever coax me like this again. Why are you crying? When my mom saw me shedding tears, she quickly leaned over. Is the flavor of this ice cream not right? No. I snatched the ice cream. It's the vanilla flavor that I like. It's just that I thought no one would ever use an ice cream to coax me when I'm sad again. Silly girl. My mom rubbed my head, and her eyes also turned red. From now on, it will be just the two of us, mother and daughter, depending on each other. We should both try to be nicer to each other. Okay, I'll share half of this ice cream with you. I used to be reluctant to share half of it with my dad. My mom laughed with a sound and turned around to get a bowl to divide my ice cream. She really did divide it in half. There are still 7 days until the zombie virus breaks out. The packages I ordered have been arriving one after another. When unloading, I stood by and watched. When I saw that it was my package, I asked them to move it onto the truck. After we were done, I gave each of them a red envelope as a token of gratitude. After being tested by the workers, our cold storage was confirmed to be in good condition and could operate normally. I directly bought shelves online and then ordered fresh meat. I bought beef, mutton, venison, and even yak meat, all in quantities of hundreds of caddies. All these were delivered to my home by SF Express for free. However, I still filled in the address of the courier station. My mom was still at home. The apples hadn't been picked yet. Mainly, the processing and packing were quite troublesome, usually taking 3 to 5 days. My phone showed that Mark had called me more than 99 times and sent more than 30 messages. First, he said that I was being unreasonable. Since I was his wife, I shouldn't be so clear about dividing things with him. He also said that his mom was my mom and that we should treat them equally. 10. I ignored him. He then sent messages saying that we were all family, and forget it. He wouldn't argue with me. I still ignored him. He said, okay, is it okay if I admit that your husband was wrong? You don't have to give me the money for now. I borrowed 8,000 yuan from my friends. You can pay me back when you have the money. I had the expression of the Metro Man looking at his phone meme. Why didn't I realize before that this guy had such a thick skin? Do I look like someone so cheap that he borrows money and I pay it back? I still couldn't be bothered to pay attention to him. The lawyer called and told me that the property ownership certificate and the power of attorney had arrived, and I could sign the contract with the real estate agent to handle the transfer of ownership at any time. Since I had already told the agent that they could take over the house 6 days later, the lawyer asked me whether I wanted to wait a few days for the transfer or do it now. I said it didn't matter, as long as the date of taking over the house remained the same. The lawyer replied with an okay. The agent transferred the remaining payment to my account that afternoon, and the lawyer also informed me that the transfer procedures had been completed. Mark was still babbling, telling me to be satisfied with what I had and that his patience was limited. He said that since I had spent so much money on my mom, what was wrong with him losing his temper? In other families, not only would they lose their temper, but they would also tie their wives up and beat them half to death and even get a divorce. I replied, fine, let's get a divorce then. Mark, wife, I was just joking with you. I know you're in a bad mood because your father passed away. Look, come home, and your husband will take good care of you. I promise you'll be in a good mood again. I really felt like vomiting and blocked him again. 11. That night, I drove a full truckload of goods home. My mom and I unloaded the goods together. Things like rice, flour, cooking oil, and grains were really heavy. Fortunately, the warehouse was on the first floor, and there was an electric cart. I moved the goods from the truck, and my mom received them. The speed was relatively fast, mainly because there were so many goods. For example, for the rice, I bought it in bags of 10 kilograms each, with 5 bags in a box, and I bought 10 boxes. Just moving these 10 boxes made me out of breath. Fortunately, my mom was more capable than me. She not only received the goods but also pushed them to the warehouse to put them away without even catching her breath. She even mocked me, saying that a person in her 20s was not as capable as an old woman like her. I had nothing to say in response. Fortunately, the goods for tomorrow would be a bit better. They were all dried goods, like cured meat, dried sausages, and mushrooms, black fungus, etc. I didn't buy too much of the heavy things like mung beans, just about 100 caddies. Compared to the rice and flour which weighed thousands of caddies, it was much easier. Early the next morning, my mom was still at home, directing the workers to pick the apples, and I went to the courier station to receive the goods. The 5 all-steel improved sugar repeating crossbows that I ordered arrived. The store also gave me 100 wooden arrows, although they were made of wood. I tried them out and found that they could directly penetrate a mineral water bottle. If they were replaced with steel arrowheads, they could definitely shoot through someone's head. According to the dimensions given by the store, I contacted another seller and ordered 5,000 fine steel sharp arrows, and I told them it was for fishing. With the zombie apocalypse approaching, these 5,000 arrows were definitely not enough, so I changed to several other stores, all with the same dimensions, the same fine steel sharp arrows, and the same quantity of 5,000. I made it clear that they must deliver the goods within 3 days, otherwise I would cancel the order directly. When I got home at night, I used my mom's phone to order 10 more Juga repeating crossbows, and then I customized 30,000 fine steel sharp arrows from another store. Anyway, these things wouldn't break, and it was always better to have more. In short, if that scumbag dares to come, I'll shoot his head off. 12. That night, I specifically stood on the rooftop to test the power of the Juga repeating crossbow. The laser sight was especially useful at night. With very high accuracy, it could penetrate a mineral water bottle placed more than 10 meters away outside the yard. If it were replaced with fine steel sharp arrows, the lethality should be even greater. In short, I was very satisfied with the effect. I gave the store a 5-star review. There are still 5 days until the zombie virus breaks out. The fresh meat that I ordered finally arrived. SF Express directly delivered a large truckload of it. I really wanted them to directly deliver the goods to my home and then move them into the cold storage. However, considering that people's hearts were unpredictable, I endured it. It would be tiring, but the most important thing was safety. In short, my mom and I were almost exhausted that night. After all, the cold storage was in the basement, although there was an elevator. Carrying thousands of caddies of fresh meat back and forth still made our hands and feet tremble. My mom even had a backache. I directly picked up my phone and placed an order for 2 massage chairs that cost more than 80,000 yuan each. Anyway, with the apocalypse coming, money that wasn't spent was just a number. In short, I would spend it until I was satisfied. Thinking of being satisfied, I almost jumped up. In my previous life, although my mom and I were safe at home, there was no internet, and we couldn't even watch TV. My mom was so bored that she even took out the little king of video games and wanted to play games with me. This time, I must arrange the entertainment items properly. I bought 2 computers that cost more than 70,000 yuan each, 1 PS5, and 2 extra game controllers in case the original 2 broke and couldn't be replaced. I also directly ordered 50 18T hard drives. On the day they arrived, I filled them all with single-player games, movies, variety shows, TV dramas, etc. It would be so great to munch on sunflower seeds and binge-watch shows when I had nothing to do. 13. There are still 3 days until the zombie virus breaks out. The last package I ordered also arrived. It was a box of lush mint, and I planned to plant it in the yard. I could pick some and make mint tea when I had time. On the door of the courier store, I pasted a notice saying that it would be closed for 5 days for renovation. My mom got up especially early and went to the market with me. The town was quite lively, especially the vegetable market. We bought more than 10 caddies of fish and shrimp. Just then, we saw a vendor selling watermelons and directly bought 10 watermelons and piled them on the small tricycle. We didn't buy anything else. After all, I had already bought all the food, drinks, including medicine and daily necessities, online. I even bought dozens of boxes of military rations that claimed to have a shelf life of 20 years. Generally speaking, as long as there were no accidents, my mom and I could survive for a lifetime. After coming back from the market, I drove the rented excavator and dug 2 big pits that were 2 meters deep on the road in front of my house. Then I parked the excavator and the truck horizontally in the middle of the road. From then on, we stayed indoors and didn't go out. Our computers were still downloading things like crazy. My mom was busy in the kitchen, saying that she was going to cook a big meal. I was browsing my phone and saw that a certain country was protesting again that there were problems with the blood products of the United States. The patients who used the blood products not only lost consciousness but also showed aggressive behavior. Our country had already stopped importing blood products from the United States. In my previous life, I had also seen such news and just swiped past it without thinking much. This time, I clicked in, and a comment caught my attention: losing consciousness and being aggressive. Wasn't that just like zombies? Was it possible that those blood products carried the zombie virus? Could it be another biochemical weapon developed by the United States? It was true that the zombie virus outbreak was very sudden. If the blood products really contained the zombie virus, then the people who had used them would become carriers of the zombie virus. Before the carriers got sick, if they had contact with others, such as intimate behaviors like kissing, it was very likely that they would spread the virus. That's why the outbreak was so rapid. I heard that many couples mutated into zombies at once and then pounced on their children and parents, resulting in the whole family being wiped out. 14. Ding-ling-a-ling. I was woken up by the ringtone of my phone early in the morning. It was a call from an unknown number. When I looked again, Mark's blocked number had called more than 99 times. This number must also be from him. I didn't answer and directly blocked it. There were more than 99 messages on WeChat and SMS. Mark asked me why someone came to take over the house and if I had sold the house. After that, there were all kinds of curses, saying that I was crazy and sold the house secretly without telling him. Finally, he also said, "You just wait for me." This was a blatant threat. I picked up the Juga repeating crossbow and shot 6 arrows at the target, without using the laser sight. My accuracy was getting higher and higher. So even if they came during the day, I was confident that I could shoot their heads off at once. In my previous life, 5 days after the zombie virus broke out, they appeared outside my house. I don't know if you will be on time in this life. Anyway, no matter whether it's early or late, the Juga repeating crossbow in my hand is not something to be trifled with. There were more and more videos of people biting others on the internet, and they all said that it was the rabies virus breaking out. I knew that the dormant zombie virus was starting to run rampant. Sure enough, the next morning, the whole internet was filled with news of zombies attacking humans. My phone showed more than 99 missed calls, all from Mark. He sent a message saying that the zombie virus had broken out and told me not to go out. He also said that since I sold the house, they had nowhere to go and could only hide in the neighbor's house. And they didn't have any food left. In my previous life, because I was worried, I kept calling him, asking all kinds of questions, and he even got annoyed with me. Now I didn't reply at all. He probably felt embarrassed or the internet was cut off, and he didn't send me any more messages. 15. On the 10th day after my rebirth, the zombie virus broke out. The whole internet was filled with bloody pictures of zombies biting people. We were on a mountain, and it was originally a place where few people went, so we hadn't found any zombies yet. However, I suddenly thought that I could attract more zombies on the way up the mountain. "Mom, I'm going out for a while." I took the car keys and grabbed the Juga repeating crossbow and rushed out. My mom said behind me, "Where are you going? It's dangerous outside." "I know. I'll be back soon." The second-hand truck that I bought before was now parked horizontally outside the courtyard. I got in the car, turned around, and drove out. I stopped the car without turning off the engine near the middle of the mountain. I used a heavy object and adhesive tape to make the horn keep blaring. Then I got out of the car with the Juga repeating crossbow and ran out. The truck was blocking the middle of the road, and with sufficient battery power, it could keep making noise for several days, which would attract the zombies. It wouldn't be as easy for that guy Mark to come up the mountain as it was in my previous life. I ran up the mountain out of breath and found that my mom was standing at the gate of the courtyard looking around. When she saw me, her eyes instantly turned red, and she shouted at the top of her lungs, "Hurry up and come in, you child. How could you run out when it's so dangerous?" As soon as I got close, my mom pulled me into the courtyard, and my butt immediately got a few slaps. After she closed the door properly, my butt got a few more slaps, and she was scolding me while hitting me. "Let you run out, let you be disobedient. What if something suddenly came out and bit you?" I wasn't bitten, Mom. You don't even know what a great thing I've done." After I told her my plan of attracting zombies to guard our gate, my mom poked my forehead hard with her finger. In any case, don't do it again next time. Come on, I've cooked your favorite braised pork and braised prawns in oil." Great. As a mama's girl, I immediately followed her happily. After I finished my meal, the car was still making noise. I couldn't hear it very clearly in the room, but when I stood on the rooftop, I could clearly hear the sound of the horn. I looked through the telescope for a while and saw a few staggering and extremely slow-moving zombies at the end of the road walking towards the car. 16. The plan was successful. I couldn't wait to see the scene of that guy Mark seeing such a large group of zombies blocking the road. The second day after the zombie virus broke out, the truck's horn was still blaring, and there was no sign of it stopping. Through the telescope, I saw that there were densely packed zombies around the car. Some of them were trying to walk up the mountain in 2s and 3s, but they didn't go far before they were called back by the sound of the car's horn. The internet was cut off in most areas online, but it was still working on my side. And the computer was still downloading things like crazy. My mother stopped looking at her phone, saying that all she scrolled through were pictures of zombies biting people. It was so disgusting that it gave her nightmares at night. She thought it would be better not to look at it and that binge-watching dramas was more enjoyable. She likes binge-watching dramas, and I like practicing with the crossbow. I'm getting more and more proficient with the Juga repeating crossbow in my hand. It's a pity that there are no zombies outside the courtyard yet. Otherwise, I could have a real practice and see if I can also hit a moving target with one shot with my skills. In the afternoon of the third day after the zombie virus broke out, I was observing the zombies near the truck on the rooftop with a telescope when I suddenly saw a small car driving in at the end of the road. It was Mark, this time. He came 2 days earlier than in my previous life. Fortunately, I had made preparations in advance, and their car couldn't get through. At the end of the road, the car slowly stopped. I guess they saw the densely packed zombies in front and the truck blocking the middle of the road. The location I chose was particularly good, since the road itself wasn't wide. It could only accommodate 2 small cars driving side by side. There were big trees on both sides of the road, and my truck was still parked horizontally in the middle of the road. It could be said to be blocked tightly, unless they got out of the car and walked. They couldn't go up the mountain. 17. Mom, look, it's Mark and the others. How could I let my mom miss such an exciting scene? I directly called her up to the rooftop to eat melon seeds and watch the show together. The car still hadn't driven away. I guess they were still not giving up. My mom said, it's blocked like this. He wouldn't still want to go up the mountain, would he? Daughter, how's your practice with that crossbow? Can you take them out instantly, me? The probability is higher at night. I'm not too sure about during the day. My mom, if you can't take them out instantly, then shoot them full of holes. These beasts treated us like that in the previous life. Shooting them full of holes wouldn't even relieve my anger. Ding-ling-a-ling. My phone suddenly rang. It was an unknown number. I had a hunch that it was that guy Mark calling, with the mentality of watching a good show. I pressed the speakerphone button. Immediately, a voice came from the other end of the phone. Wife, you finally answered the phone. Your husband is about to die. Oh, then hurry up and die. I directly laughed out loud. Mark's heavy breathing on the other end of the phone was so clear. I guess he was struggling hard to suppress his anger. It was really difficult for him. Wife, don't be joking. Your husband is on the way to your house now, right here on the halfway up the mountain. The road is blocked. Do you have any way to let your husband pass? As long as your husband is alive, he will love you well and spoil you for a lifetime. Okay, he lowered his voice. I don't know if he was afraid that the zombies would hear or if he was deliberately making that bubbly voice. It was so greasy that it made my scalp tingle. Me, tisk tsk, what should I do? I only like a dead husband. Faith, don't go too far. Now is a matter of life and death. Can you think of a way to let me pass and we can talk about other things later? Mom and Dad are still in my car. They've always been nice to you. Do you have the heart to watch them be bitten to death by zombies? Mark got angry for a moment. Just for a moment. His voice got lower and lower as he spoke. I guess he was afraid of attracting the attention of the zombies. If it were in my previous life, I would definitely let them in the house without saying a word. But now I just want to see the zombies bite them to pieces, so I laughed even louder. I have the heart. Why wouldn't I? It's not just your parents in your car, right? There should also be the female neighbor upstairs. Oh, and your dear son, Mark. Your whole family really loves each other. Even if you die, you have to die together. I'm really happy for you. 18. How could you know? Mark's tone was very bad, and my tone was even worse. Of course it's because your female neighbor showed off to me. She said that I'm a hen that can't lay eggs, that the little fatty is the real offspring of your family. Oh, and she told me not to occupy the position without doing anything. I didn't say that to her. The female neighbor's tone was full of panic. I heard the sound of slaps, and the wailing cry of the little fatty. The phone seemed to have fallen, but it wasn't hung up. I could hear my father-in-law's shout. Drive quickly, those zombies are coming. My mom and I picked up the binoculars simultaneously. The zombies were charging towards their car. Although Mark had turned the car around in time, he was still a little late. The zombies had come surging forward and surrounded them completely. My mom and I picked up the telescope at the same time. The zombies were rushing towards their car. Although Mark had turned the car around in time, it was still a little too late. The zombies had swarmed around them and surrounded them tightly. I could hear their terrified screams on the phone, especially the little fatty. His wailing cry was intense. Mark shouted at him to stop crying, but instead of stopping, he let out an even more ear-piercing and shrill cry. I directly laughed out loud. After all, I had experienced this sound before. Last month, I was still at home, in the middle of the night. The little fatty was playing ball upstairs. I went to knock on the door and asked them to be as quiet as possible since everyone needed to rest. As a result, the female neighbor rolled her eyes at me. The little fatty was even more excessive. Just like now, he was shouting at the top of his lungs with a shrill cry. I asked the female neighbor to take care of it, but she sneered at me and said that I didn't understand because I hadn't had a child. I should just let him shout. And he would naturally stop when he was tired, I argued with her. And Mark's family took her side. They pulled me home and scolded me for being unreasonable, saying that children were naughty and that adults shouldn't be so petty. They even accused me of going to their door to pick a fight because I was jealous that I couldn't have a child. Now I have to say, the little fatty's cry is really pleasant to hear. All right, my little god, stop crying. This was my mother-in-law's voice, in the previous life. She pointed at my nose and called me a hen that couldn't lay eggs. She also said that the little fatty was the real offspring of their family, and that a useless person like me who couldn't lay eggs should be thrown out to feed the zombies. Now she was begging her precious offspring to stop crying. Her precious offspring became even more complacent and cried even more shrilly. It was so ear-piercing that I could hear it clearly on my phone. Through the telescope, because of the little fatty's howl, more and more zombies were gathering. Some of them were even pressing against the front window glass and making all kinds of close-range attacks. 19, damn it, shut up for me, Mark's angry roar, and a loud slap. My mother-in-law, ouch, talk nicely, don't hit him. The little fatty had just quieted down as soon as my mother-in-law spoke. The little fatty howled again and shouted, I want to get out of the car. I don't want to stay in here, damn it %you and hashtag you and %, Mark cursed very harshly. I didn't know what he did. I only heard the little fatty making a whimpering sound, and my mother-in-law's shout, don't cover his mouth so hard, let go, hurry up and let go, don't suffocate him, if he keeps crying, we'll all die. Mark's voice was hoarse, but at last, there was no more howling from the little fatty. The horn of the truck over there was still blaring, after there was no more noise here. The zombies would naturally walk towards the truck, and they could escape unscathed. I watched through the telescope as the zombies gradually walked back towards the truck. I was quite disappointed. Why didn't the little fatty cry for a while longer? More zombies could have come, overturned their car, or squeezed the car window glass until it burst. It would have been great to wipe them out all at once. The car started again and drove out of sight directly. The phone hadn't been hung up yet. I could hear their sighs of relief after surviving the disaster. Suddenly, my mother-in-law let out a howl. Leo, what's wrong with you? The female neighbor, Leo, wake up. My mother-in-law let out a heart-rending howl. My Leo, you killed my son. The female neighbor also let out a howl. Mark's roar, shut up all of you. Do you want to attract the zombies again? In that situation just now, if he kept crying, could we have gotten away? Do you want to all die there? It's all that bitch Faith's fault. She killed my son. When I find her, I'll skin her alive. Mark's vicious voice came from the other end of the phone. My scalp tingled. Clearly, he was the one who suffocated his own son to death, yet he could actually blame it on me. I also wanted to see whether he would skin me or I would shoot his head off this time. 20. The truck had sufficient battery power, and the horn had been blaring for 4 days and was still making noise, early in the morning. I stood on the rooftop with a telescope to check the situation. There were no zombies around the courtyard. There were more and more zombies near the truck, even at the end of the road. There were zombies staggering around. I even saw several workers who had picked apples for us before, and they had actually all turned into zombies. I felt a bit uncomfortable. I put down the telescope and took out my phone, only to find that there was no signal on the 4th day of the apocalypse. The internet was also cut off here. My mom could only use the hard drive to binge-watch dramas. Fortunately, we had been downloading at full internet speed these days, and the hard drives we bought were already full. In short, we didn't have to worry about not having dramas to watch, movies to see, or games to play in the next few years. If worst came to worst, we still had the little king of video games. My mom made a cake. As soon as I came down from the rooftop, she brought out the freshly baked cake. It smelled so good, paired with a cup of coconut milk coffee. It was simply perfect. Daughter, what do you want to eat for lunch? Mom will make it for you. My mom handed me the tablet, which was full of pictures of delicious food, such as salt and pepper mantis shrimp, spicy stir-fried crabs, honey-glazed chicken wings, crispy streaky pork, garlic-flavored roasted lamb chops, big skewers of beef. It was simply amazing. I asked my mom, can I order whatever I want? Yeah, order whatever you want. Mom can make it for you. My mom was simply amazing. She was a treasure of a mom. I immediately said, spicy stir-fried crabs, garlic-flavored roasted lamb chops, and honey-glazed chicken wings. For the drink, I want watermelon coconut milk. Mom, would it be too much if I said I wanted a dessert too? Vanilla ice cream. My mom poked my forehead. Okay, Mom will satisfy you. Mom, I love you to death. I threw myself into my mom's arms and gave her a loud kiss. This wasn't the apocalypse at all. This was clearly the happy life of this mama's girl. 21. I don't know where Mark and the others have gone or if they're even dead. After the truck honked for 7 days, it stopped making noise. Those zombies scattered everywhere. Many of them fell into the 2 big pits I'd dug, and some were wandering around outside the courtyard in 2s and 3s. I originally wanted to shoot them. I had already aimed at them when I realized that shooting one zombie with one shot in zombie movies only looked very satisfying. After experiencing it myself, I knew that just aiming at the head of something that used to be human was enough to make me feel physically uncomfortable. Forget it, I might as well keep them to guard the door. The hens in the courtyard laid eggs. Now, the 6 hens can lay 3 or 4 eggs every day, and there is also a rooster that crows every morning. I was originally worried that it might attract the zombies outside the courtyard, but I found that the zombies were just swaying against the wall. After the rooster stopped crowing, they dispersed. There was no danger, and it could even attract them to wander around nearby. The effect of guarding the door was excellent, so I didn't care about it anymore. The chives I planted sprouted. My mom said that chives grew well, especially when it rained. They grew very fast. After cutting one batch, they would grow again. I said that it was just like stock investors. When there was good news, they would rise rapidly, and there would always be more batches to cut, and they could never be completely cut off. My mom: so you must never invest in stocks. Your dad's former boss was on the verge of jumping off a building because of stock losses back then. I heard that he's at it again recently and has lost several million. His wife has even run away. Me: I can't invest in stocks even if I want to now. Mom: besides chives, what other vegetables grow well? My mom: there are plenty. For example, water spinach. Look, the mint that you always like to use to make tea also grows very well. You basically don't need to take much care of it, and it will be lush. You even have to cut a batch every now and then to feed the chickens, otherwise, you won't be able to finish eating it at all. Then I'll eat more and not give it to the chickens. I smiled slyly, picked up the bucket, and went to look at the fish. Basically, all the fish fry that I released before had survived. I just need to throw some fish feed in every day. By the time the fish in the refrigerator are finished, these little fish fry will be big enough to eat. It couldn't be more wonderful. 22. On the night of the 8th day after the zombie virus broke out, there were continuous explosions in the small town at the foot of the mountain, and there was a sea of fire. The zombies wandering around near the courtyard were attracted by the sound and swayed down the mountain. I wonder what happened to the people in the town. I sighed and went back to my room to sleep. Daughter, wake up. There's a car coming. Early in the morning, I was woken up by my mom. Mark appeared again. When I went to the rooftop, their car was parked in front of the excavator that I had parked horizontally in the middle of the road. The truck on the halfway up the mountain had been moved away. I guess the explosions last night had attracted all the zombies away. Mark and the others took the opportunity to come up the mountain. Fortunately, I still had a backup plan. Now they were blocked in front of the bulldozer and couldn't move forward any further. After all, there was a key in the small truck. If you could open the door, you could drive it, but the bulldozer didn't have such a situation. Mark didn't have the ability to pick the lock, so he could only curse around the bulldozer. After a while, he went back to the car and took a hammer to smash the window glass of the bulldozer. My in-laws and that woman also got out of the car and looked around cautiously. I wasn't afraid of trouble while watching the excitement. I ran downstairs to get the drone. This thing had a high-definition camera and could clearly capture Mark and the others in the air. The sound pickup effect was also excellent, and it could even pick up my mother-in-law's muttering clearly. Mark, the female neighbor, was the first to notice the drone and pointed at it and shouted at Mark. He stopped the action of smashing the glass and stared at the drone. The flesh on his face was twitching, and he looked as ferocious as a ghost seeking revenge. 23. Wife, I know you're there. Can you let me in? Husband was wrong. Husband really knows he was wrong. I won't dare to do it again in the future. Will you forgive husband this time? Mark threw away the hammer in his hand and cried and kowtowed towards the drone. Seeing that I didn't respond, he suddenly slapped himself in the face. It's all husband's fault. It's right for you to be angry with me. Blame me. It's all my fault. Wife, just let me in and you can hit me as much as you want until you're willing to forgive me. Okay. His face was visibly red and swollen, showing that he had really hit himself hard. I grabbed a handful of melon seeds and ate them while watching. My mom even specially brought me a bottle of wonlaji. Eating too many melon seeds will make you have internal heat. Drink something to reduce the heat. Mom is the best. I took a big sip of the wonlaji. It was icy cold and refreshing. It's all your fault. It's you. You slut, who seduced me, otherwise. How could I have taken a fancy to you? Seeing that I still ignored him, Mark suddenly turned his anger on the female neighbor. My father-in-law beside him raised his foot and kicked the female neighbor hard, saying, "Hurry up and kneel down to apologize to my daughter-in-law. It's all because of you, you bitch, that caused this mess between them as a couple. I really admire them. They truly are father and son." The female neighbor knelt down crying and howled at the drone. I was wrong, wife. It's all this bitch who seduced me. She pulled me to a hotel room when I was drunk, and then she said she was pregnant. She cried and made a scene, insisting that I marry her. This bitch doesn't even take a look at herself in the mirror. With her behavior, she doesn't deserve to be my wife. Mark grabbed the female neighbor's hair and stared at the drone. Wife, I'll avenge you right now. With 2 slaps, he hit the female neighbor in the face. Mark was still cursing foully. You slut. Who told you to provoke my wife? You even said she couldn't have children. Even if my wife can't have children, she's still my wife. What you gave birth to is a bastard. 24. I didn't. Just as the female neighbor made a sound, Mark slapped her in the face several more times, extremely hard. Blood even flowed out from the corner of her mouth. Weren't you being arrogant before? You even showed off in front of my wife. Mark dragged the female neighbor by her hair and walked forward. The female neighbor didn't struggle at first, but suddenly she seemed to realize something and struggled violently. Let go of me, let me go. There was the big pit I dug ahead. When Mark climbed the excavator to smash the window just now, he should have seen the zombies inside. He actually wanted to throw the female neighbor in. Help, Mom and Dad, save me. The female neighbor howled and clung tightly to Mark, preventing him from throwing her down. She also called for my in-laws, unexpectedly. My in-laws actually pried the female neighbor's hands apart from left and right and helped Mark throw her down. I was horrified. I grabbed the Juga repeating crossbow. I absolutely couldn't let them live. Wife, look, I've avenged you. Mark looked at the drone and showed a ferocious smile. I also aimed at his head and shot an arrow from the crossbow, but it missed and hit his arm instead. Fortunately, the Juga repeating crossbow could shoot 6 arrows at once, without hesitation. I pulled the trigger continuously. After the first arrow, he turned around and ran. My second and third arrows all hit his back. It was not until the last arrow hit him right in the back of the head that he fell heavily to the ground. Murder. My mother-in-law let out a howl. My father-in-law beside her actually turned and ran. He didn't care about his son anymore and also abandoned his wife. The car made a turn and sped away. My mother-in-law stood there in a daze, looking at my father-in-law who had disappeared with disbelief. Then she looked at her son who was lying on the ground motionless. She seemed to have all her strength drained out of her and slowly slumped to the ground. 25. I had already picked up another Juga repeating crossbow with an arrow loaded. Seeing the scene, I put it down. Forget it. It was just like this anyway. My mother and I went downstairs to play the game It Takes Two. I was actually the one holding us back. My mother played even better than me. I really couldn't stand it. Forget it. Forget it. My brain isn't good. I must have inherited it from my dad. After finishing a game, I held a cup of milk tea and went back to the rooftop. I found that the zombies in the pit had actually climbed up from the side slope. They should have been attracted by the smell of blood and pounced on Mark's body, biting and tearing at it. Your mother-in-law. My mother pointed at the woods by the roadside. My mother-in-law was already lying on the ground motionless, and the one gnawing at her was the already mutilated female neighbor. This family was reunited in a rather strange way. Except for my father-in-law, I was quite disappointed that he had run away. I should have practiced my aim with the Juga repeating crossbow more so that I could hit one target with one shot. In the end, I shot 6 arrows at one person and almost failed to kill him, but my father-in-law would definitely come back. I didn't slack off at all. I shot at the target every day, determined to directly shoot him in the head when he came again. Unexpectedly, more than half a year passed, and my father-in-law never showed up again. My mother said that he should be dead. After all, with so many zombies outside, it was no wonder that an old man in his 60s like him couldn't find a shelter and died. Anyway, it didn't affect my mother and me from continuing to live our small life. Mom, let's have a barbecue on the terrace tonight. Sure, Mom will go and skewer the food now. My mother happily went to work. In the past 6 months, she either planted vegetables and fed the chickens or cooked delicious food for me. Fortunately, I practiced with the crossbow and did exercise every day. Otherwise, I would have become a 200-pound fat woman already. In the dead of night, the whole world was shrouded in darkness. The lights on the terrace of my house were still on, and the barbecue meat was sizzling and oozing oil. In this apocalypse, my mother and I took a bite of the barbecue meat and a sip of the watermelon coconut milk with plenty of ice. It was simply wonderful. All right then, I don't have to worry about you anymore. Extras. It has been more than 5 years since the zombie virus broke out. My mother and I were playing the game It Takes Two again. We had already cleared the game for the 3rd time. Suddenly, my phone screen lit up. It was a text message. The zombie cleanup is in progress. Please go to the relief stations by yourselves to receive supplies if you are in need and are in the safe areas. Mom, there's internet again. I jumped up and handed the phone to my mother to show her. The relevant departments had been gradually releasing the addresses for receiving supplies and informed everyone that the zombies in the surrounding areas had been cleared and they could go there with confidence. As I scrolled through my phone, I suddenly found that the car at the car accident scene posted by a netizen in the same city looked familiar. Then I saw the license plate number, which was Mark's car. In the video, my father-in-law staggered out of the car. Before he could run a few steps, he was knocked down by the zombies beside him. The posting date was 5 years ago. It should be that this netizen took the video and tried to upload it, but the internet was cut off, and it couldn't be uploaded until now. When the internet was restored, it was automatically uploaded successfully. I scrolled through it. All the videos were shot 5 years ago, and there were almost no recent ones. I don't know how many survivors there are left, but fortunately, we have all survived. It's finally over. Story 2. I work at a small local firm where the pay is decent, and overtime trips are the norm. I live alone in a loft apartment and have a cat. It was a Tuesday noon when I received what seemed like a prank text message. I had just come back from a long field assignment, and my boss had graciously given me a week off. I parked my car back in the garage. It was an SUV I had bought years ago. Change is coming. 5 days. Zombies. I frowned, swiped away the message, and muttered, how boring. It was a hot September noon in the city. After grabbing a quick bite outside, I planned to go home for a shower and a long sleep. Change is coming. 5 days, zombies. The message arrived again, followed by a short VCR link. I clicked on it and felt nauseous. The video showed surveillance footage from an office building in a neighboring city, where several skeletal figures with flesh clinging to their bones were shuffling in an eerie manner. I spent 3 minutes thinking. I decided to believe it. It was 3 p.m. The sun was scorching, typical of the city to have intense sunshine following a heavy rain the day before. First, I went home and checked my food and supplies. I live on the 25th floor, the topmost, in a duplex apartment without any security grills. I immediately called contractors to install security grills and replace all my windows with bulletproof tempered glass. Outside my existing security door, I added a fire door. Since I paid extra, everything was installed by around 5:30 p.m. I had half a barrel of oil at home, a small bag of rice, and no stocks of grain. There was plenty of cat food, though. But my water dispenser was nearly empty. I chuckled helplessly. Indeed, without prior notice, I would be totally unprepared. The cleaning lady I hired had the house spotless in an hour. At 6 in the evening, I took my cat to the vet for vaccinations and a bath. While it was being bathed, I bought cat food, canned cat food, snacks, litter, and more. These supplies would last a long time. I stuffed my SUV full, filling even the seats, and made 2 trips. After dropping off my cat and the cat food at home, I headed to Walmart. Since it was late, Walmart's shelves were nearly empty, so I cleared out all the available sanitary pads, instant noodles, compressed biscuits, tissues, laundry detergent, rice, oil, salt, and more. The supermarket staff, smiling broadly, delivered a truckload of goods to my door, but it wasn't enough. As a woman, I couldn't just go out as men might. Staying home was the best protection for me. At 9 in the evening, I ordered dozens of barrels of drinking water on JD.com, expecting them to be delivered by the next morning. Water is crucial. At 9:30, I went to the pharmacy and bought out all the anti-inflammatory drugs, alcohol, masks, and other essentials. The pharmacy was reluctant to sell some prescription drugs, but after I handed over 200 yuan, they didn't fuss about it. At 10 at night, I stood in my living room, knowing it still wasn't enough, after taking a bath. Just as I was about to drag myself to bed exhausted, my phone rang. Change is coming. For days, zombies. I checked my phone. It was midnight, Wednesday. After making sure all the doors and windows were securely locked, I drifted into a deep sleep. It wasn't until after 10 a.m. the next day that a call from the water delivery guy from JD.com woke me up. I quickly got out of bed, instructing him to neatly stack the water jugs in the guest room, which almost filled it up completely. His surprised look was selectively ignored by me. Then, I headed out to the supermarket again. I bought a lot of preserved foods and a bunch of other groceries including rice, oil, salt, soy sauce, vinegar, instant noodles, self-heating hot pots, enough supplies that I wouldn't need to step outside for a year. Oh, and electricity and water. I cleared out the portable chargers from an electronics store next to the supermarket, making sure they were fully charged before taking them. I bought thick blackout curtains and several home fire extinguishers. I also purchased thermal insulation wallpaper to cover all the walls in my home and several large, deep barrels, which I filled with tap water. I acquired several sets of fully equipped gas masks and protective clothing. I contacted a friend to help me buy some prohibited knives from a shady store, along with climbing ropes and protective gear. After some thought, I also bought the most advanced water filter available and had it installed in the bathroom. Having done all this, I received a text message indicating there were still 5 days left. I sat in the beef noodle shop downstairs, eating while browsing videos on Bilibili on how to tie knots. By 8 p.m., I was at the bookstore, picking up a pile of books I had wanted to read but never had the time. The world might be nearing its end, but I didn't want to hide at home and become just another survivor wasting away. Since my loft apartment had a private elevator directly to my parking spot and no one could reach my floor without an access card, I thought it through and decided to buy some medicines, more food, water, and protective gear to store in my car. I also took the car to be serviced, the tires reinflated, the tank filled up. And I secretly slipped the worker $200 to load a few large gasoline canisters in my car, along with a portable fuel pump. At 10 p.m., I returned home. The underground garage was silent, brightly lit, seemingly unchanged. My phone chimed. A message from my best friend Ella. Heard you're on leave. I'm taking tomorrow off too. Coming to visit you. Ella lives in the neighboring city, the one recorded on the VCR. I couldn't help but blame myself for being so preoccupied with stocking up that I'd forgotten about my best friend. After all, I still wasn't sure what the source of this zombie virus was, whether it was transmitted through bites, saliva, blood, or simply by looking at someone too long. It seemed the news was tightly controlled. The city was still peaceful. I replied, "Sure, remember to bring some food. I'm broke at home." Back on the 25th floor, I noticed the emergency light at the safety staircase was on, the dark staircase illuminated by a fluorescent green light, giving me goosebumps. Why was the emergency light on? There was no power outage. Having read too many crime novels, and knowing I didn't have the main character's aura of invincibility, I didn't foolishly step out of the elevator to head home, without hesitation. I didn't step out of the elevator but instead quickly closed the doors and pressed the button to return to the first floor lobby. There were quite a few people in the lobby even past 10 p.m., as several families had recently had a second child. The grandmothers were chattering away, and the lively atmosphere in the lobby gave me, a young woman, a bit of calm. There's safety in numbers. I approached the lobby reception, tapped on the desk to get the attention of the young man engrossed in his phone. He looked up with a smile. "What's up? Any parcels? Why is the emergency light on my floor's safety staircase lit?" "Oh, it's just maintenance, part of a linked circuit." I don't really know how to explain it, but it's just maintenance, nothing to worry about." "Why do maintenance at night? Don't the workers go home?" Miss, I really don't know, but every floor's emergency light is on. There won't be a power outage, don't worry. "We each have our own independent power supply system," I said, still feeling uneasy, given that I live alone, watch too many crime shows, and am actually quite afraid of dying. I asked the front desk to bring security to check things out. Together with about 4 or 5 security guards and a cheerful young man, we went up to the 25th floor. The green emergency lights were still on. The young man, smiling, said, "Come on, I'll show you around, and you won't be scared anymore." The security guards and the young men thoroughly checked every corner of the 25th floor in front of me. Then, they escorted me down from the 25th floor via the safety stairs. Floor by floor, everything seemed normal and logical. "Don't worry, call the police immediately if anything happens," the young man from the front desk said. Considering how expensive the monthly property fee is, it suddenly seemed worth it. Back on the 25th floor, I pondered for a moment and, risking a serious talk with the property management, I locked the heavy fire door to the safety staircase from the inside. After all the hassle, I got home by 11 p.m., feeling exhausted and helpless. I cleaned up after my cat, took a bath, applied a facial mask, and suddenly thought, damn, I'm almost out of facial masks. No matter how isolated I am, I still have to be a refined girl. I immediately ordered a bunch of facial masks from Tmall Supermarket, guessing they would be delivered by the next morning. Just as I was thinking this, my phone beeped again. Zombies, change of weather, 2 days. I woke up naturally around 8 a.m. It felt like I hadn't dreamed, yet it seemed I had dreamed about something, a sensation like having visited a parallel dimension. I opened the windows of my apartment to let in some air. The only view was of a decent-looking artificial lake among the reinforced concrete buildings. A group of elderly men and women were using the community's fitness equipment, and a commuter rushing to catch the subway nearly bumped into a woman pushing a stroller. It was so quiet and ordinary. How could there possibly be a change in the weather? I began to doubt that it was just some kind of prank. Ella called, saying she was at the entrance of the complex. I tidied up, closed the windows, drew the heavy blackout curtains, checked everything carefully, and left, for some reason. The emergency lights that had suddenly turned on last night made me vaguely feel that something was about to happen. I met up with Ella, who indeed had brought a lot of food. I went with her to a nearby farmer's market and bought several large green plants. This was thanks to a sudden thought I had while cleaning up after my cat the night before. If zombies really came and there was no electricity or water, what would I do about my waste? Surely, plants are the best solution. Ella looked skeptical. You can barely manage yourself, and you're trying to manage plants. What do you know? Help me carry them. Then we bought a lot of portable gas stoves and solid alcohol. I even secretly got a big bag of flint from the owner. Noticing a nearby outdoor survival gear store, I dragged Ella inside and swept through items like searchlights, oxygen tanks, and candles, as Ella helped me carry things. She explained to the shopkeeper that her company was preparing for a team-building survival training exercise. In the car, Ella asked me, "Have you gone mad, buying all this stuff?" "I'll explain later. Think about what else we might need to stay home, and we'll buy those too." "Sure." A whiny Bob poster. Soda Green album. Ella is my childhood friend, a psychologist working in the psychiatric department of a city hospital in the neighboring city. After we lugged everything upstairs, Ella opened a bottle of soda. What's really going on? Damn, is this video from the office building next door? Ella was shocked. It must be a composite, or maybe they're filming. It's not a composite. I followed a tutorial and conducted a technical analysis of the video. That's the busiest office building in your city, with so many companies. Why would they use it for filming? Ella dismissed it with it's fake and then went to take a shower. The phone rang with a text message. Zombies, change in weather, one day. I paused for a moment and called the number back. I had tried calling back before, but it was either busy or turned off. The call went through, but there was silence. Fearfully, I asked, "Who is this?" No sound came from the other end. It was as quiet as if the universe's abyss lay on the other side, utterly silent, eerily quiet, deathly still. Suddenly, a rustling sound from behind startled me. "It's me," Ella said, rubbing her damp hair. "Let me listen." The silence on the phone was unprecedented, a kind of quiet that seems impossible if any carbon-based life form were present. Not even a library with its doors and windows shut could achieve such silence. There was no sound of air movement. As if the space had been filled with molten iron and sealed off. That's how Ella later described the silence to me. Did the person on the other end mute their microphone or something? I didn't finish my sentence when suddenly a harsh, grating noise erupted from the other end, like the sound of a rusty needle scraping on an old record player, giving me goosebumps. The sporadic and eerie screeching made my head start to ache. Damn it. Hang up. Ella snatched the phone from me. The night passed without dreams, or so it seemed. I couldn't remember clearly. It felt as though my brain retained traces of brightly colored patches, which could have been mosaics or perhaps like the static on a TV screen from my childhood. What were these memory patches from the long 8+ hours of the night? I took out an old bottle of medicinal oil and rubbed it on my temples. "Do you smell something strange?" Ella suddenly turned and looked at me. At that moment, I was holding the cat, waiting in line at the vet for a deworming treatment. Maybe it's the smell of disinfectant from the vet's office, but I've been smelling it since we left the house today. Ella tightened her mask over her nose, fogging up her glasses in an instant. "It's a faint smell, like expired olanzapine." "What's olanzapine?" "It's a type of psychiatric medication." Ella pulled out her phone to show me. Olanzapine, a new atypical antipsychotic medication, interacts with dopamine receptors, 5-HT receptors, and cholinergic receptors, having antagonistic effects. Antagonism of the D2 receptor is related to the treatment of the positive symptoms of schizophrenia. Antagonism of the 5-HT2A receptor is related to the treatment of the negative symptoms. "You see, these people definitely aren't in good health," Ella whispered to me as I comforted our newly dewormed cat, following her gaze toward a group of men waiting for a bus nearby. Their skin was an unhealthy, jaundiced yellow. "As a doctor, I'm telling you, that's a sure sign of liver issues." Ella clicked her tongue. "You should take care of your health." "What exactly does that smell like?" "Never mind." Ella shook her head. "It's probably just me being in the hospital too long. Let's head back home early." "Okay." I rubbed our cat's belly, which it enjoyed so much that it started purring, its chubby paws curling in a comforting and peaceful manner. After the vet, we went to the supermarket and bought some vegetables like cabbage, corn, and potatoes, which have a relatively long shelf life. "Let's just stay home and rest for a while. Better safe than sorry." Ella nudged me, pursing her lips. "Besides, I can cuddle with Whiny Ba." We got home around 4 in the afternoon. The weather forecast predicted thunderstorms, and looking at the murky skies, it seemed likely. "It looks like it might really rain soon. The emergency light is on. Is there a power outage scheduled for your complex?" Just as I had carefully reversed the car into the garage, Ella pointed at the glowing green emergency light above the safety stairwell entrance. "Another maintenance check." "This," Ella frowned. "Let's quickly grab our stuff and head home, and I'll read through selected works of Mao a few times to calm myself down." We meticulously inspected the 25th floor, making sure once again that the fire door to the safety stairwell was locked, and then sighed in relief. We double-checked all the doors and windows were locked, drew the curtains, and organized the supplies we had accumulated over the past few days. If that text message was accurate, then tomorrow would be the day, or rather, in about 8 hours, the change mentioned in the message would occur. Ella and I collapsed on the sofa, the TV series playing softly in the background, broadcasting a recording of the Tokyo Olympics from years ago. "Do you think zombies are as disgusting as that Japanese athlete who stepped out of bounds yet still won the gold medal?" Ella, with her face mask on, made it hard for me to see her teasing expression. "Zombies, the term, originates from Haitian Vodou culture. According to Vodou beliefs, a sorcerer can resurrect the dead who are then also referred to as zombies, the inspiration behind the zombie image. These resurrected beings can move and use tools. But they lack free will and are controlled by the person who performed the resurrection ritual, like soulless puppets, thus often treated as slaves. I scrolled through Wikipedia, and this text caught my eye. Our perception and fear of zombies come from Western media, but their characteristics are somewhat stereotypical. For instance, they bite at the sight of normal humans but not their own kind. They can still move and bite to infect humans even with a broken cervical spine. I smell that scent again, Ella, washing off her facial mask, suddenly exclaimed, "There's that smell in the water." I shuddered and got up to turn the air conditioning up 2 degrees. When I was washing my face, some water got into my mouth. It tasted bitter, Ella said, gulping down bottled water to rinse her mouth. Pentobarbital sodium, odorless, bitter taste. It's a controlled psychotropic substance, used to treat seizures caused by tetanus, meningitis, and poisoning from central nervous system stimulants, and can also be used to treat status epilepticus. Psychotropic drugs are really harsh on the liver, Ella continued. Just then, my phone pinged with a new message. Ella and I exchanged glances. I shrank back but quickly grabbed my phone, fearful that missing those couple of seconds might cost us a chance to survive. I swiped open the message. "Have you completed those dozens of audit drafts? The deadline is tomorrow. Remember?" Ella rolled her eyes. "That message is as terrifying as a zombie alert." 5. I glanced at the clock. The hour hand was just short of 11. After 2 hours of frantic work on my computer trying to finish the drafts before the deadline, I twisted my neck, and my long inactive bones made several crisp cracking sounds. "Great. You're the perfect embodiment of the saying, 'No holidays for workers unless the earth explodes,'" Ella said without looking up. "If there really are zombies tomorrow, do you think we'll open the door to find Alice coming to rescue us, or the big boss rushing you for reports?" No more texts pinged my phone, just occasional notifications about a video upload from an uploader or new products on Taobao. I sneaked the curtains open a crack. There was no one around in the complex, all was quiet. "Can you still smell something odd in the tap water?" I was about to rinse my mouth when I suddenly remembered something and stopped. "I really can't smell it." Ella tilted her head, thought for a moment, then suddenly jumped up and rummaged through her bag for a box of pH test strips. "You really are a unique one, carrying such things around. I'll give it a try." Ella dipped a toothpick into some tap water and touched it to the center of the test strip. Seconds later, the small strip turned a deep green. At 3 in the morning, I closed my laptop while Ella was still scrolling through some videos. There were no notifications on my phone. If there really were zombies, who would text me to let me know? I muttered to myself, "Who knows, maybe the whole world knows you're the most afraid to die." I woke up groggy at past 9 in the morning. After 6 hours of sleep, my dream seemed filled again with those vivid, colorful patches, blocks of colors, either one by one or merging into a dizzying, large patch, occasionally losing color, turning into the white static of an old TV with no signal. These chaotic, sourceless memories were irritating and nauseating. Ella tried to call the municipal water service to complain about the water's alkalinity, but couldn't get through. The eerie For Elise ringtone played on repeat, but no one answered. The gas supply seemed normal, though we noticed that the flames were burning in an insufficient yellow-red color. After using bottled water for our morning wash, we discussed whether to go outside, when I suddenly caught sight of several people across the street below. They had just stepped out of their building, seemingly having smelled something odd. As I noticed, they all immediately covered their noses and mouths, turned, and ran back inside. One even bent over to vomit after just a few steps. What was wrong with the air outside? Thinking this, I opened the long-muted residents group chat. "What's with the air outside? I can hardly breathe." Someone typed frantically, "I've already told the elderly and children not to go outside. What's going on? I feel like I'm going to ascend to heaven if I stay out a second longer." I vomited, got choked the moment I stepped outside. "I'm not even going to work. What's going on outside?" Ella grew more puzzled. "Hey, that's not right. Look at those trees." Following Ella's pointing finger, I was shocked to see the trees in front of the opposite building visibly rotting, displaying an unseasonal moldy yellow. "Can't they breathe?" "No," Ella suddenly responded. "It's because the concentration of nitrogen in the air has sharply increased. Nitrogen itself is not harmful to humans, but at slightly elevated concentrations, people may experience mild headaches, nausea, vomiting, hallucinations, and excitement. Our hospital has been overwhelmed with severe cases these past few days," Ella said while scrolling through her phone. "We've done monitoring, can't find the disease focus, but the organs are failing. Our home air purifier had been running continuously, now making a persistent rustling noise. Is this a prelude to a zombie apocalypse?" Ella turned to ask, "Do people with organ failure even have the biological basis to become zombies?" Looking out the window, There were no people visible in the neighborhood anymore. I heard that someone had called the police. Fully armed personnel in white isolation suits arrived, collected some blood and air samples, and left. Why was this happening? The air outside, the tap water, those people, what was going on? 6. The date warned by that mysterious text message was already more than halfway past. Alkaline water, lights turning on by themselves. The strange composition of the air. Could zombies mean something else? I wondered. In the evening, we each prepared a self-heating hot pot, our abundant supplies even allowing us to add a couple of marinated eggs. With a slurp, Ella sucked a piece of spicy beef tripe into her mouth. It was so hot that she shivered. Some say it's mass suppression. She was browsing a forum that was abuzz with discussions about strange patients admitted to various major hospitals. As we were talking, my phone suddenly rang with the same number again, and a new VCR was sent over. Ella and I looked at each other in confusion. This is from the city water supply company. I recognized the blurry logo in the video background. It's the water treatment plant. In the video, a man wearing a cap stood beside a large centrifugal pump, pouring buckets of something into it. The water, mixed with unknown substances, was being pumped into the water supply network under pressure. I grimaced. Sending this to me is pointless. I can't save the world. I just want to survive until things go back to normal. Ella rolled her eyes. Stop watching. Just eat your food. As night fell, we drifted into a deep sleep until a piercing noise woke us up. We cautiously peeked through the curtains. The sky was a fiery red, and across the street, several men were yelling something out of their windows. Look at the color of the sky. Isn't the light pollution severe? I muttered, in a trance. I faintly heard the sound of a helicopter slowly fading away. What are they doing? Ella widened her eyes, looking downstairs. Following her gaze, we could see a group of people in the neighborhood garden, heads bowed, completely motionless. Perhaps it was the angle or the distance, but they seemed as still as stones, or like statues made of hardened cement. The men shouting in the building were cursing in a dialect, and from this distance, it was impossible to make out what they were complaining about. Is there anything mentioned in the group chat? Ella pulled me back to bed and tightly closed the curtains. I opened the WeChat homeowners group, and sure enough, there were over 99 plus messages. My dog has been barking at these weird people all night. Yeah, where do they live? I've never seen them before. Was that piercing noise made by them? They really haven't moved at all. My husband has been watching them all night. By 6 a.m., the blood-red sky slowly faded into a lifeless gray-white, unknown to us. As the heavy night lifted, one of the people in the garden, whose complexion had turned from yellow to nearly black, moved his head suddenly. His stiff neck and bones made a faint crackling sound as he slowly turned his head, his gaze fixed on a particular building. To be precise, it wasn't a gaze but a waxen yellow eye socket and a gray-white eyeball. What was he looking at? We've been cooped up at home for a week now, afraid to go outside. We obediently followed the government's instructions, waiting for the day when things would improve. I had sent the final draft to my boss just before the deadline, not sure if he had reviewed it. The audit report I was supposed to write was also completed, along with the substantive risk drafts. Ella had finished updating all the electronic medical records she needed to. We spent our days clinging to our electronic devices. Our usually busy 996 or 007 life, which never allowed for timely meals, was gradually becoming normal. I used to be too busy to eat breakfast. The polyps on my gallbladder should have healed by now. I smacked my lips on a bowl of simple mashed potatoes with just salt and potatoes, mumbling to myself. Now with some free time, Ella had been catching up on various variety shows and dramas, and it seemed she was watching Empresses in the Palace for the second time. If people really have souls. Ella asked me. The Prince of Gui should have realized that Jinhuan's child was his, right? The life Ella and I were leading, hiding at home waiting for order to be restored, seemed to have entered a new normal within the abnormal. Only occasionally were there noises of heavy objects crashing down from high places and the routine roar of helicopters flying past every day at 5 in the morning. A week ago, that morning, as the heavy night was torn open by the not-so-bright sunlight, someone who had woken up early stood at their home's windowsill, but the next second, let out a long, piercing scream from shock. The sudden shift in the air composition outside not only startled the withered leaves off the buildings but also alarmed the people who sought refuge indoors due to the change. The group of people, gaunt with yellowish complexions, displayed seemingly frail bodies, extremely sallow skin, and cracked lips, unlike characters in movies who fear sunlight or ultraviolet rays. They occasionally erupted into frenzies or fell into silences, often expending seemingly futile strength to bang on the tightly locked doors beneath each building. Their numbers grew, with their waxen skin and pale, grayish eyes becoming more prominent. They seemed desperate to get inside the buildings. I scrolled through the neighborhood WeChat group, where people shared eerie videos daily, asking, "Is it really because of that water?" "What else could it be?" Ella replied. Tearing open a packet of crispy noodles, she snapped it in half with a crack. Want some? Yes. Like us, everyone must be staying indoors. Scrolling through news submitted by the public daily, the city isn't paralyzed. People are just wary of using tap water these days. My sleep has improved slightly recently. The frequency of colorful blotches that haunted my mind upon waking has decreased. These days of isolation, unable to go outdoors, remind me of a virus outbreak years ago. Though back then, we could still go outside. Back then, I often reread Camus' The Plague. Now, the sudden change in the air forces people to depend on buildings equipped with oxygen and circulation systems. This morning, I woke up to find a small ulcer in my mouth and winced as I sprayed some watermelon frost on it. The number of those abnormal, gone people downstairs varies. Some might wander off elsewhere, at times. They suddenly quiet down and then slowly, heavily breathe in the direction of the air that we cannot tolerate, and that direction is toward the city water plant. They must be suffering too. As time passes, the internet buzzes with analyses, some from supposed insiders describing the situation in chilling terms. Ella and I pieced together some information, but something fell off, the logic incomplete. It likely started with a neighboring city's water company, where an inspector found unlisted substances in a water sample during routine checks. He reported it diligently, but before any prevention measures could take effect, the water system had already been distributing the water everywhere: factories, office buildings, farms. But the changing air composition, inexplicable prophetic texts, and chaotic dreams filled with colorful blotches create a fear that is both real and corrosive. It must be severe liver damage that's causing their skin to look so terribly yellow, Ella said. Applying a face mask while cooking a self-heating rice meal, the self-heating meal, sizzling with the aroma of chicken with mushrooms and shredded potatoes, glistened with oil and was laden with preservatives. Compressed biscuits aren't tasty, too hard and salty, but they do fill you up. Water is our biggest daily consumption: washing hands, face, bathing, using the restroom, and drinking. Holding on to the debunked virtue of 8 glasses a day. Ella and I unwittingly use up many bottles of mineral water. Again, a long dream filled with vivid colors plagued my sleep. These vibrant patches suffuse everything within sight, creating an overwhelming sense of transparency. It's as if I'm placed inside a massive prism, surrounded by reflections of myself. At 6 a.m., jolted awake from plummeting in a dream, I rubbed my head and gulped down a lot of water. I turned on my phone. The world of code and binaries hasn't come to a halt. I stroked the cat, and it purred contentedly. Those people acting strangely have damaged nerves and lack self-awareness. They will die soon without energy intake, Ella muttered as she browsed a forum. It's just the air outside. She didn't finish her sentence when suddenly a loud roar came from outside the window. The building seemed like it was about to shatter. We carefully parted the curtains just a sliver below. A few gaunt figures with barely any strength left were hitting the building. The government has demolished the water plant, Ella said, scrolling through her phone. Days ago, the water plant was shut down for good. Unknown chemicals poured into it were now reacting chemically within the poor victims' kidneys and livers, simultaneously eroding their nerves. What's wrong with my brain? I rubbed the right side of my head, which throbbed with pain. Lately, I've felt nauseous and anxious for no reason. Even though I've been idling at home more, I've only felt more exhausted. Maybe it's because I've been home too long, eating less fresh fruits and vegetables. The mouth ulcers haven't healed for a long time. Ella said I was overreacting, but even with a grimace and careful movements, the ulcer still stung painfully. Preservative-laden compressed biscuits and MS-Durich instant hot pots seemed to fill every cell of my body, as if a switch had been turned off inside them, and yet abundant sleep remained lifelessly dull. It's all that nonsensical mosaic you told me about, Ella. With a facial mask on, I couldn't read her expression. You're just overthinking things. Get some good sleep. Time seemed to slow down. Unable to go out, I could only stealthily part the thick blackout curtains to peek at the outside world every day. I could only remember feeling increasingly fatigued. Back when I was busy with work and lacked rest, the right side of my brain would throb painfully, reminding me I needed a good sleep. But recently, having withdrawn from social interactions and watching the days pass by on my phone's calendar, sleep has become excessive, and my mind has started to feel fragile. I began to think that the dendritic nerves in my brain must be transmitting erroneous signals, causing my forgetfulness. Whether it was the freshly boiled water, the newly added cat food, or even my freshly washed face after applying a mask, I walked into the bedroom, thinking to open a new barrel of water for the dispenser, and Ella came over. Let me help you with that. You're too frail. I stared blankly as the water dispenser's indicator light switched from red to green. What are you doing? Ella suddenly slapped my back, startling me so much that I spilled the powdered milk I was preparing. Why would you scare me like that? I muttered. You know I get easily frightened. Coward, Ella responded dismissively. Drink some milk, I'll clean up. I seem to have grown fond of spacing out. By the time I realized I had been sitting on the sofa for a long while, it had already gotten dark, my thoughts were muddled, and everything above my neck felt heavy and exhausted. I shook my head and got up to add some cat food for the cat. The cat lay lazily in its bed, watching me. I stroked her and noticed milk powder on her whiskers. You really are greedy, I murmured as I wiped it off. I went to complain to Ella about the cat sneaking milk powder again. Ella, with a mask on, her expression unclear, her phone casting a greenish glow on her face, somehow felt a bit alien. What do you want to eat? I'll go get something. I leaned against Ella's room door. Ella had been staying here for several days, and the room was filled with her scent. Is it an illusion, or what? For the first time, I felt that this scent. It made me feel a bit less exhausted and chaotic. I'm not eating. Find something for yourself. As night fell, I typically pulled back a corner of the curtain. The sky was still a dark red. There were no more shadows moving around in the neighborhood below, and it was unclear where everyone had gone. I picked up my phone and refreshed it, only to find that the refresh date was stuck a week ago. Had I not noticed that the internet was down? I ran to ask Ella, who didn't even look up. Yes. The internet has been out for a while. I downloaded this variety show early on. Do you want to watch it with me? I disdainfully declined the noisy and tedious invitation. While brushing my teeth, I noticed my gums were bleeding again. Frustrated, I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand and lay heavily on the bed, putting on a steamy mask. It seemed like I fell asleep quickly. I must have fallen asleep. I remember seeing a space filled with mosaic tiles, as if I was surrounded by millions of dazzling, colorful facets. Occasionally, my brain felt a sensation of weightlessness, plunging downward, instinctively wanting to grasp something. I looked at my hand and saw it clutching a strand of yellowed, withered hair. Startled, I threw it away, and a dizzying sense of chaos overwhelmed me, with a buzzing sound continuously ringing in my ears, as if screaming to tear apart my nerves. Did I really fall asleep? I must be sick, but only I feel that way. Ella doesn't think so. I lay drowsy in bed, my heart beating so rapidly at times that I could only breathe with my mouth open. Once, Ella brought over a depressor and stimulated my throat, which made me nauseous, but I ended up dry heaving without vomiting anything. Finally, my heart rate slowly calmed down. You just haven't breathed fresh air in a long time. Ella replaced the filter in the air purifier in my room. Go to sleep. You'll feel better when you wake up. It must have been late at night, otherwise, why was it so quiet around, silent as if filled with molten iron sealed in a column? My hearing became unusually sensitive due to the extreme quiet, as if I could hear the flickering sound of a light bulb dimming due to an electrical issue. I opened the bedroom door. The living room was pitch dark. I groped to turn on the light, and the sudden brightness really made my head throb. I rubbed my eyes hard, and once again, a large swath of green, red, and purple mosaics appeared in my field of vision. I leaned against the wall, standing there for a while until I slowly recovered. The cat must have been asleep too, since I couldn't find her. Usually, when I got up to go to the bathroom, she would come over, wagging her tail and acting affectionate. Ella's room door was also closed, and the gap under the door was pitch black. Was everyone asleep? But I felt very sleepy too. So why was I awake? Another gloomy day. And after finding out my phone finally had internet, I lay in bed, scrolling through over 99 plus unread chat messages. In this digital age, it seemed that data wasn't much affected. My head still felt swollen, and as the days passed, I increasingly noticed I was easily hungry, yet I had no appetite to eat anything. I drank a lot of water, but that didn't help heal the ulcers in my mouth. Has the weather gotten colder? I pulled out a fluffy jacket and turned to ask Ella, who was engrossed in watching some video. Don't you feel cold? At that moment, Ella, wearing a short-sleeved shirt and leaning on the sofa, replied, You feel cold? I do feel cold. You are cold. Ha. Ella tossed me the remote control for the air conditioner. Set it to a temperature you're comfortable with. Then please take the trash bag to the door, Ella said disdainfully, picking up a heavy-looking black trash bag. Don't just lie there. Get up and move around. I picked up the damp-feeling trash bag, and as usual, I just left it at the door without opening it. Every time I approach the doorway, I can always feel a faint draft seeping through the cracks, originating from some unknown source of convection. It's very subtle. I once called Ella over to check, but she said it was as silent as the deep sea here, not a single sound to be heard. That night, I must have fallen asleep early, for it felt like I had slept for a very long time. I must have forgotten to take a sip of water before bed. In my dream, my mouth was parched, my chest felt oppressively hot, and I could even feel the dry, cracked skin on my lips. I wanted to touch them, but I couldn't muster any strength. I kept dreaming that I was slamming into a door, over and over. as if wanting to get in, but I couldn't. I tried desperately to breathe, but my muddled consciousness and what felt like compressed organs made every moment uncomfortable. My eyes ached terribly in the dream, whether they were open or closed, and the pressure seemed to swell my head unbearably. I dreamed again of a space filled with chaotic, multicolored patches, the sensation of falling endlessly, the inexplicable palpitations, the panic as I tried to grasp at something, only to hear a heavy thud. Did something fall? It seemed like I woke up, otherwise why would there be people around me? I was truly exhausted, surrounded by an endless mirage of dizzying colors, with the occasional piercing buzz that made me shiver. I wanted to go home and lie down to rest. How could I wander off like this? I really wanted to enter the building in front of me, but the door was too heavy. I was too tired. I couldn't even pull the door open. I could only try to crash into it with my body. The main door of the building in front of me was tightly closed, but I could still keenly feel the draft through the door crack, a comfortable breeze created by the air flowing between spaces. I longed to take a deep breath, but even ordinary breathing seemed difficult. The instinct to survive made me desperately want to enter this building, dragging my heavy arms and legs, further exhausting my already weary body. I wanted to find a place to rest before attempting to open the door. I definitely need to make a complaint to the property management when I get a chance. I slowly moved my feet, remembering there was a gazebo next to this building where I could sit and rest. Once I had rested enough, I would open that door and go home. And once home, I could keep on living. And, extra, it seems humans have always been struggling against nature. But I know it's all in vain. My childhood was spent during a rampant, life-stealing plague. The sky was either dazzling or gloomy. I never saw the sunny afternoons described in books. Faces were unclear to me, and it was hard to remember everyone I met. I spent the first 28 years of my life under a dome created by humans for survival. It was designed merely for survival because the world outside the dome was beyond the current human capacity to live. My parents always worked hard to change this situation, and growing up around them, I even felt that changing this situation was our family's mission. People can't live under a dome forever. My parents' experiments and ideas received support from a foreign research institution, so when I was very young, our family moved into the laboratory. After completing my studies, I joined my parents in their obsession with creating gene-testing drugs by combining different sequences. Those were the happiest days, where I even met my fiancé, who shared the same aspirations. Everything changed when the supporting research institution changed directors. The new director despised our experiments aimed at human immunity renewal and evolution, criticizing the huge funds spent with no significant progress. One night, desperate for the latest antibody data, my parents injected themselves with a newly developed drug and walked to the edge of the dome, sneaking out of the door. They left the final formula in my notebook and never returned, as expected. I was expelled by the research institution. Holding that notebook, I walked alone on the streets of America. I got to know a girl, also an international student. When she was taking her cat for a health check, the cat reached out of its carrier and playfully snagged my backpack's dangling charm as they passed by me. She truly is the kindest girl I've ever met in this foreign land. She gave me a place to stay and added a touch of warmth to this otherwise dreary environment under the dome. Eventually, she returned to her country after completing her studies, and I secured a job at a research institute in a nearby city. Ostensibly, the institute was focused on pharmaceuticals, but secretly, I used the lab to continue perfecting my formula. She always thought I was a doctor. The white coat I wore seemed to her a symbol of authority. However, I never liked her cat for some reason. Every time I visited her in the neighboring city, she would bring out a special little cotton towel and a water cup printed with designs, just for me. She is the best girl I've ever known. She told me that she had never seen the real blue sky or breathed natural air since she was born. I silently vowed to help her escape this chaotic dome. About a year ago, I injected my fiancé with a modified serum, and he responded well to it. He even chatted with me, promising to take me out for a good meal when he returned from outside the dome. One deep, dark night, we sneaked into a restricted area. As you know, in a research facility, there are always ways to open the dome. Standing at the exit, he turned to look at me and said, "I won't be gone long, I'll be back soon." Suddenly, I remembered my parents. I wondered if, many years ago, they too had felt a longing for the sheltered, false world they left behind. 5 days, 120 hours later, he returned. His skin was sallow, his lips parched, and his eyes pale. But his heart was still beating strongly, his arterial blood fresh and vibrant. I knew the experiment might have succeeded. After all, he had survived. The world outside the protection of the dome was harsh, with intense ultraviolet rays and solar flares emitting radiation strong enough to kill normal cells, mingled with harmful, abnormal air and atmospheric water vapor carrying nauseating and uncomfortable substances. I took what might be a successful experimental report to my boss. Hoping for a bit of encouragement, he flew into a rage. Furious that I had conducted another research project behind his back, he accused me of violating scientific ethics and condemned me for using human experiments. He gave me an ultimatum, ordering me to wrap up my work and leave within 5 days. My fiancé held me, and under the thin skin of his gaunt arms, I could faintly see the veins carrying venous blood. "Is the formula based on my data refined yet?" he asked me softly. I nodded. "But the sample data is too limited. You're the only case of survival so far." My fiancé pondered for a moment, then said, "You focus on the testing, I'll handle the rest." I didn't know what he was planning to do, perhaps finding more test subjects, maybe more mice or rabbits. I had sacrificed many innocent mice and rabbits. The crucial gene segments had to be human, but I didn't stop him. I watched as he dragged his seemingly exhausted and dried-out body away from the door. One deep night, he returned and told me he had found a large test group for me. My heart sank. I secretly hacked into the surveillance videos of the neighboring city's water supply company and saw him, wearing a cap, pouring large barrels of reagent into the water supply intake. My mind went blank. If successful, we could open the dome. If it failed, everyone inside and outside the dome would suffer unimaginably, but my fiancé said, "To succeed, some sacrifices must be made. Reflect on your parents." I fell silent. My parents once struggled for survival outside the dome, floating until they exhausted every bit of energy they could find, and gradually perished. My fiancé used up his last bit of strength at the edge of the dome, one hand dangling over the side, the other leaning against the dome's transparent yet sturdy wall. I wasn't sure if he wanted to leave or break through the dome. Suddenly, I remembered that girl. After a bout of conflicted thoughts, I sent her a video and a message, urging her to stay at home and not venture outside. This was a new drug, crafted from a novel genetic sequence. I couldn't control the people it infected, but at least, for such a good girl, I knew how to protect her from external harm. I accompanied her on her shopping trips, noticing every subtle change in her. Initially, I thought her heightened sense of smell was a good thing. Cultivating a being with advanced sensory capabilities was part of my design. As I hoped, she stayed indoors with me when the outside world became chaotic. However, the constant failure to meet expectations frustrated me. I often hid in my room, where I had installed a barrier device to ensure my own safety. Sometimes, out of pity, I'd invite her to watch TV shows with me, to breathe in some specially treated air to feel a bit better. But she didn't like watching them. I knew that every cell in her body was undergoing changes daily, just like many others in the city. Some changes were obvious, while others adapted well. Endless data streamed to me, and during many quiet nights, I remotely monitored lab data from my room. I guessed that in her dreams, she would see colorful mosaics, tranquil yet shimmering mosaics, all gifts from me. The world of sleep was pitch black, boundless, and silent. Only these vibrant colors could stimulate her dopamine secretion and the death and regeneration of certain neural dendrites. I had considered stopping these experiments on her, but that annoying cat licked up the last of the drug powder. I made arrangements to bring her back to the lab. At the edge of the dome, I opened the door and let her walk out on her own. Her altered genes compelled her to yearn for the world outside the dome. The organs in her body now preferred the intense ultraviolet rays and strange air outside the dome, but it seemed she was clinging to something, and she was very tired. Her chaotic, speechless state pained me. Had my parents also clung to something before they left? For the next subject, I guess I'll do it myself.